Wonderful, Mika replied, rubbing her head. So, either I'm genetically perfect and unneeding of any changes, or I'm genetically defective and incapable of true adaptation. And to top this expositional onslaught off, I just might happen to come from a race that was at some point genetically created in a lab, which doesn't at all explain how the hell we ended up on a nowhere planet, isolating ourselves from everyone, and rebuking most technology. If we were created in a lab, then who created us? And why did they just send us out to some nowhere planet? Or did they send us at all? Great. Answers for questions that I never asked, and new questions that I never expected that I'd have, Mika said, staring at the holographic display. This is all just too much to add on to what I'm already dealing with. Maybe I'll think about it later. But for now, I'd kind of like to focus on my current problems. Yes, of course, Ricola replied. Well, the injections that I've given you should last until your body adapts to them. At minimum, a few weeks. 2, maybe. And at max, an extra month or so. Yeah, but I've got sort of a war to win. And I'm not really certain of a time limit. It's not like I'm going to be able to enter this battle as, well, who I'm pretending to be, and then suddenly change halfway through it. Are you going to be able to come up with some new variant of this? At least until I can finish this off, Mika said, clasping the carrying case or holster that Dr. Ricola had handed to her. I'm afraid that won't be possible. I'm afraid anything more drastic than this would simply prove instantaneously lethal. Whether you believe the time frame is limited or not doesn't matter. You are allotted the time that you are allotted, and must do the best you can with it. Trying to give you another genetic suppressant would be next to useless, with your current body already having adapted to the ones that I've given you. It would be short order to adapt to anything else. Even if I made the compound in a new order, your body's increased effectiveness at neutralizing compounds that had those sort of effects would be massively increased. Yeah, wonderful, Mika replied, rolling her eyes a bit. Guess that's what I get for being genetically perfect. Yippee, Mika said sarcastically. Really, you mustn't be sarcastic, Captain. It's unbefitting. Sorry, Ricola, but sarcasm is kind of my outlet. Can you just let me have this one? Mika replied. As you wish. I'll return to the medical bay and be there if you need me for anything, Dr. Ricola said as she stepped back away from the desk after packing her small case and reacquiring her data pad. I'll see you soon. Hopefully you'll be in better spirits next time, Dr. Ricola said as she made her way out of Mika's office. Mika spent the rest of the day going about her normal duties, biding her time until it was time to leave. Thankfully, with her headaches no longer posing a problem, having faded away, and her feeling much better. And eventually the time came, as Mika was talking over some of the new changes to exovol with Oscar in engineering. She received the communication to come to the bridge. Friedmont was hailing them. As Mika arrived on the bridge, the holographic display was already active. with Friedmont on the other end. Well, glad you finally decided to show up. Felt like I was going to be waiting here forever, Friedmont said with a sly smile on his face. Wonderful, a wise guy. I waited for your ass for 12 hours, and here you get impatient in 5 minutes. Just the kind of behavior I'd expect, Mika said, rolling her eyes. Well then, Captain Angelica, should you do the honors, or should I? Friedmont replied, as Mika took her seat. No worries, Friedmont. You go first. I'll have my ship match course and speed, Mika said as she crossed her legs sitting in the captain's chair. Don't mind if I do, Friedmont said as the signal between the ships terminated, and Friedmont's ship began to move into position outside of the planet's orbit, jumping to light speed, with Exovol and Mika right behind them, following suit and matching their course and speed, eventually settling in around light speed 12, which was slower than Exovol, but still fast enough that they were making fair enough pace. After both ships picked up speed and started to maintain an even rate of travel, Friedmont once again began hailing and was immediately put through to the bridge. Okay, so now that I have all the honeydews off the list, I figure me and you ought to have a chat, Toots, Friedmont said, sitting in the captain's chair, putting his arms to the back of his head and leaning back, as if he didn't have a care in the world. Yes, and exactly what are we supposed to be talking about? Mika replied. Well, the mission, of course. What, you didn't think I'd call just because you got a pretty face, do you? Don't get me wrong, by the looks of you, I'd love to take you for a test ride. But I got business shit to work out. Money first, fun second. Alright, first things first, Mika replied, with a disgruntled and somewhat disgusted expression on her face. If you ever think you're going to take me for a test drive, you can just let that illusion go. I'd sooner be eaten alive by Bocarian sludge dogs than spend a night with you. Ugh, by the looks of you, I could probably smell you through the screen if I got close enough. No way are you touching me, Mika replied, trying not to let on that her disgust was based in previous knowledge of him. Second, we're going to be required to work together for this mission, so I'd appreciate it if you'd skip past the over-familiarity. I am Captain Angelica, and you will refer to me as such. And lastly, as I've come to understand it, you were brought onto this mission before I was. So what is it that you expect me to tell you? Aren't you already briefed on the situation? I thought that would have been part of your duties within the 12 hours that I wasted waiting for you. You mean to tell me in all of that time, you didn't so much as contact the Brotherhood once to get an update on the battle situation? Transmissions for intel and information. Sue me, I was busy. I had shit to do, Friedmont replied, still as carefree as before. Mika sighed deeply. And by things to do you mean gallivanting with prostitutes? Because that's what I think you mean by things to do. Listen, are you gonna give me the intel, or play how's your day? Friedmont replied. Because you're gonna have a hard time doing both. Now, I'd prefer not to get my ass blown up from a lackluster of information. So, seeing as you're in this conflict too, And losing a whole ship just because you find me distasteful might not be something the Brotherhood would look favorably on. Maybe you should cut your bitching and fill me the hell in. Mika really hated to admit it, but he was unfortunately right, at least for the moment being. Fine, you insufferable ass. I'll send you a data transmission, an encrypted one, containing the up-to-date information for the combat zone that we're waltzing into. Do steady up. I just hate to see you and your ship blown to itty-bitty fucking pieces, Mika replied, a bit of a grin on her face, purposely visible, so that Friedmont know that the idea was actually pleasant to her.